Hello everybody, this is the third video in a series of videos about Python programming for engineers. My name is Mark Bakker and I work at the Delft University of Technology. Today's topics are loops and if statement. Let's start with loops. You use loops when you want to execute a command several times. For example, to execute something 5 times, we type for I in range 5. Colon. Then we hit enter and you see what happens next is that IPython notebook automatically indents here. That's not just because it looks nice and it is good programming protocol, it's actually required in the Python language. Whatever we type here, we're going to do 5 times. For example, we could print to the screen, print the value of I is, and then the value of I. Enter. And I could add more statements here on inside the for loop. Once I'm done, I can jump back, I can leave the indentation and keep typing there. There is no such thing as an end of the for loop. Python will understand you're done with the for loop if you go back to the beginning and you print something else here. Print we are done with the for loop. Alright, let's execute this. Shift enter. And you see, it starts for I in range 5. The very first time I is equal to 0. Second time it's 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So it does it 5 times. And when it's all done, it's done with the loop. It goes to the next Python statement, which is simply printing to the screen, we are done with the for loop. What is this magic range 5? Let's see. Range 5. Oh, range 5 is a list with 5 numbers starting from 0, ending at 4. It's the same thing as a range, except for a range gives back an array and range gives back a list. You can actually just type here for I in a range 5, but that would be slightly slower. What Python does is it has a looping system where it loops through every item in a list, or every item in an array, or every item in a tuple. The same statement here we could replace by something like this. For I in not a range, but now just type out a list, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, colon, enter, and then type what we want to do here. Print the value of I is I. You get the same result as we got before, but what I wanted to show you is this list here could be anything. It could be 0, 4, 8, 6, 3. And then the first time it goes through, it takes the first value out of that list, which is 0. The next time it's 4, then it's 8, and it's 6 and 3. It again goes through this loop, does this loop 5 times, but the I has a different value every time depending on what the value is in this list. Since the length of the list is 5, it goes through the loop 5 times before it stops. Alright, that's the idea of a for loop. Next to that, we have an if statement. For example, a is equal to 5. We could say if a is larger than 5, colon. Same idea, you type an if statement. You say, alright, if a is larger than 5, colon, whatever is now indented here is executed when this statement is true. For example, we could do print a is larger than 5. We hit shift enter. It appears like nothing happens, but nothing should happen. A is equal to 5. If a is equal to larger than 5, it should print this. It's not larger than 5, so it does nothing. If we would type here, if a is larger than 4, it nicely prints, a is larger than 5, because a is equal to 5. Oh, then it should also say 4 here, probably. We can extend the if statement by also adding an else. If a is larger than 4, we print a is larger than 4, else print a is not larger than 4. Gives the same result, but if we now make a equal to 3, then it would print a is not larger than 4, because it says, if a is equal to 4, is it? No, it's not. Then else I do that. There is a third item or many more items you can add to that. You can also have an else if. So we say if a is larger than 4, we print it's larger than 4. Else if, which is actually written as elif, but it means else if. If a is larger than 2, we print a is larger than 2. Else we print a is smaller or equal to 2. And what do we get? A is equal to 3. Is it larger than 4? No. If that's not the case, then else if a is larger than 2, which it is, then we print that. If we would have had a is equal to 1, we would have gotten a is smaller or equal to 2. Smaller than or equal to 2, maybe, huh? A little bit nicer English. Next, we're going to combine for loops and if statements. For example, for I in 2, 4, 8, 6, and 3, 7, 6, and 3, sorry. If I is larger than 5, we print I is larger than 5, and then also the value of I. Else print I is not larger than 5. And if you do shift enter, then you see indeed if oh, I did not put the I here, so let's add that. If I is not larger than 5, the first time it's 2, that's correct. The second time it's 4, then it's also not larger than 5. Then it's 7 or 6, they are larger than 5, and 3 is not. What is important to realize here is the indentation. This is the for loop. This is all executed inside the for loop. Then we get this if statement. If this if statement is true, this is all executed when I is larger than 5. And otherwise we'll do that. Once we're done with all that, we go back to the next I value in the loop. Next, we're going to do nested loops. Nested loops are loops inside loops. And the example I want to show you is by using a matrix with random numbers. Now, we haven't really used that yet, but I can show you quickly how to do that. We're going to learn a lot more about that in the second quarter. A is equal to random dot random. That's a function. So I open the parenthesis and it tells us it needs a size. So let's say we make it 10 rows and 20 columns. Now I've created an array A with 10 rows and 20 columns of random numbers between 0 and 1. Just to show you, let's print a 0 to the screen. And you see it's 0.93, 0.75, 0.83, 0.98. By randomly chance, they're all pretty high. 0.56, and eventually there'll also be some smaller ones. And the next time I execute this, there will be a different set of random numbers. Right? Now it's 0.15, 0.29, 0.61. Every time it generates a new set. So you have to bear that in mind. Doesn't matter for our purposes. What I want to do is I want to create a graph. And for every value of A that's larger than 0.5, I print a blue dot. And for every value of A that's smaller than 0.5, I plot a red cross. For that, I'm going to loop through all the rows and all the columns, check if A is larger than 0.5, and print either a blue dot or a red cross. To do that, we have a nested loop for I in range 10. There's 10 rows, so I'll loop through 10 rows, colon. For j in range 20, there's 20 columns. I check whether A is larger than 0.5. If Aij is larger than 0.5, colon, again another indentation. Now I know this Aij is larger than 0.5, so I say plot I, j, blue circle. Else If I want to do an else, I have to hit the backspace or the delete key on the Mac. Else plot I, j, red cross. And then we're done. If you want to have more statements, we should get rid of all that indentation, go back to where we are, and we want to add an X label that says I value, just to make sure we know what we're looking at, and the Y label is the J value. And maybe we should also print a 0 to the screen so we can, or maybe a 1, be more fun, to the screen, so that is, so we can check whether it worked. Shift Enter will execute this, and we get our nice graph here. There we go, with blue dots and red crosses. And you'll see we printed to the screen A1. A1, I value is 1, is this column in the graph of values, but it's actually a row in the matrix. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values are all less than 0.5 by chance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those values are indeed less than 0.5. Then there's one that's larger. 2, 3. There's 3 that are larger than 0.5, and there are 3 blue dots. Then we have 1, 2, 2 red crosses, then a blue dot, and so on. It looks like it worked fine. The last thing I want to show you is what happens if you mess up the syntax. If you type 4i in range 5, enter, and you don't see any indentation, that's a sign that something is wrong, because IPython indents for you automatically. What's wrong here? Well, we forgot the colon. If you're a little stubborn and you say, I don't really care, I'm just going to keep continued, and you say print the value of I is I, you can still run this, Shift Enter, you get an error message. What does it say? In an error message, always start reading at the end. Syntax error, invalid syntax. It even tells you where it is. There's this little caret here that tells you the error is at the end of the 4i in range 5 line. Oh, that is indeed correct. So I need a colon there. Let's try that. Ah, still not right. Now it says indentation error, expected an indented block. It did expect an indented block, and we don't have it. We do a for loop, then you indent, and everything that's indented is inside the loop. Once you stop indenting, you're done with the loop. Python expects you to have an indentation because you typed this for statement with the colon, all correct. Then you need to indent. Once you're done, you stop indenting. Print done. And we're done. And now it works correctly. That was all I got for you today. Hope to see you next time. Goodbye.